and so we'll get started and get through some of the housekeeping chores before the commissioner shows up. The first is a slightly bureaucratic function, which is part of the corporate policy that we have to have, is a safety announcement. And so if there is a, don't smile, it's true, that there are no planned firearms for this evening. So if you do hear an alarm, it will be a long, straight, constant signal. And if you please exit according to the green emergency exit signs and gather out in front of the building by the Schumann metro station. And if you need to use the bathroom, the toilets are across the way behind the cloakroom. The microphones are in the seat rests. We'll have question and answer sessions both in the conversation with Commissioner Cañete and then during the panel. And welcome to the Energy Vision series, which is presented by Shell. Energy Visions is a year-long editorial series which looks at the politics and policy issues driving today's energy and climate conversation in Europe. This is the second of 3 events. The next one is going to look at carbon leakage and will be held before the Paris Climate Summit. If you want to find out more about the series and to register to attend the upcoming event, you just have to visit the website. That's politico.eu/energyvisions. We have a strong social media component, and so you can follow us at #EnergyVisions and at EnergyVisionsEU, and as well at EventsPolitico. And we have a Twitter question. What's the best way for the EU to diversify its energy supplies? And we'll be hopefully taking a couple of Twitter questions during the Q&A parts of the evening. You also are supposed to have feedback forms, and so if you could fill those out and hand them back by the end of the evening. Tonight's discussion is about the Dash for Gas, which sort of looks at the great game of the EU hunting for new gas resources in the neighborhood. It's not quite as swashbuckling as the 19th century great game for Central Asia, but it has seen Commissioner Cañete and Vice President Šefčovič sort of roaming the neighborhood from Algeria all the way to Turkmenistan to look for new sources of gas. It's all part of the push to lessen reliance on Russia and to better integrate the EU's gas market. We'll be looking at a couple of questions like, does it make sense to be hunting for these additional sources of gas at a time when there are big questions over projections for future gas use? Should there be more reliance on domestic sources of gas like shale gas? Does the diplomatic push conflict with other EU priorities like the promotion of human rights in countries like Azerbaijan and Turkmenistan? And of course, looming over everything is the upcoming Paris climate talks and the supposed future role of fossil fuels in a decarbonizing world. To kick off the evening, I'd like to ask Dick Benschop, the president of Shell Netherlands, to begin with a short speech.
Jan, thank you very much. Very warm welcome on my behalf, Commissioner Cañete, Minister Vassiliou, distinguished panel members, all participants. Great to see you all here. It almost feels a bit strange if you, at a night like this, at this point in time, you want to talk about important European developments, that you do not talk about the refugee situation or the humanitarian crisis that is taking place. Thinking about that, I think somewhere down the road, not in the actual crisis management, but somewhere, energy might be part of one of the solutions to what we are facing today. I believe that Europe is in need of a new neighborhood policy, has to rethink through some of the security and foreign policy issues. Of course, to think through asylum and migration, but But part of the solution will probably lie in the development of the countries and the regions bordering Europe, in North Africa, in the East Mediterranean, in Southeast Europe and in Central Asia. And their economic integration, the link with Europe, will play an important role. And energy cooperation historically has always played an important role in economic integration. And that's where I think energy can be part of the solution as well. I think even broader, the Energy Union might be shaping up as a rather successful European policy project, 1 year in the making now, and as such could help to boost confidence and cooperation in other areas as well. And I see that underpinned by a lot of personal commitment. It was mentioned as well. Commissioners, including Commissioner Cañete, extremely active to make the Energy Union come through. The Energy Union, is it a dash for gas? Now, I'm perhaps going to surprise you. I'm going to say I don't think so. If you look back a couple of years, we have seen a dramatic decrease in the demand for gas in Europe. Various reasons, but the wrong shift from gas to coal is part of that reason, and that one has not been fixed yet. And if you look forward, take for example the International Energy Agency outlook, you'll see a partial recovery in the coming years. Yes, an increase in gas demand as well, but at modest rates. I would say, instead of advocating for a dash for gas, I would advocate for a responsible use of natural gas as a part of the solution of the issues and the challenges we face. And I say part of the solution because we know that efficiency, growth in renewables will play a large role as well. But gas is there. And I think we should be explicit and not shy about it. The role gas can play in the energy transition, in helping to meet the ambitious 2030 targets on CO2 emission reduction, on efficiency. I think gas can contribute in all sectors, and the power sector, going not from gas to coal, but from coal to gas. Coal has 80% of the emissions in the power sector. If we have a carbon budget and we use it to burn coal, it's not a good race. I see many countries in Europe, Germany, UK, Netherlands, Denmark, Portugal, and others discussing that issue. The ETS reform that is underway, the market stability reserve that has been established, are a necessary help. Very good support for that. But in the 5 to 10 years time frame, when a lot of things are going to be decided, they will not be enough. So something still has to be done there. In the industry sector, combined heat and power efficiency can play a large role, but elements there are at risk because of the situation around gas. Transport sector, of course, very good news. LNG replacing fuel oil, very positive development, lots of investments taking place there. In the residential area, there's a lot of focus, increased focus on the heating sector, rightly so. Sometimes I think the role of gas there is not well understood. For example, hybrid solutions where you combine more insulation, decentralized renewables, heat pumps together with gas for peak use as well, can well bring us beyond 2030 in meeting our targets. And of course, the other important role of natural gas, apart from helping to meet the 2030 targets, is around the flexibility, the stability of the energy system and the power system, especially gas as a systems fuel. The supply-demand picture, and that's where, of course, the dash for gas comes into play, because domestic production, and that is an underlying trend, will gradually decrease. And therefore, even with a modest demand growth outlook, Europe will need more imports. And that's where the energy diplomacy and the diversification comes in. Pipeline supplies from those neighboring regions, from North Africa, the East Med, Central Asia, will be important, are important, and will be so. The same applies to Norway and Russia as well. They continue to play an important role. On top of that, I think what is going to be the critical factor, not just in terms of physical supply, but in terms of shaping the market, will be the role of LNG, liquefied natural gas, and the imports of liquefied natural gas into Europe. It will connect Europe to the world gas market. The gas market that is becoming broader and deeper at the same time. We're coming from a situation that perhaps 10 countries were exporting LNG. We are at 20 now, many more to come, including the United States. Much of the infrastructure is already available in terms of the import terminals. There's probably a few to add in critical regions in Central and Eastern Europe or in Southern Europe. The interconnection will allow the gas to flow from import terminals to customers across Europe. Projects of common interest have been identified, an important step. And of course we see the development of liquid markets as an unstoppable movement in Europe. If you take all of that together, the availability of LNG, the connection to the world market, the infrastructure that is there, the additions to that that are necessary, the development of the liquid market, you see a picture emerging of Europe as a highly competitive, very liquid gas markets, which is all at the benefit of the consumer who will have the choice. So against that background, I'm extremely proud that we have this panel tonight. I'm very interested to hear your views on the challenges and the opportunities and what your steer is on where to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, I ask Commissioner Miguel Arias Cañete to come up. Thank you very much for agreeing to take part. I'll begin with a question of a slightly more theological bent. You've just met the Pope, and what's your view of his sort of entry into the environmental game, and both of his encyclical and his later pronouncements? Is it a useful addition to have that kind of weight from a fairly unexpected quarter?
I have met the Pope and I have read the critical of that museum. It's a very interesting document. But I think it's very important that faith leaders of the world, because it's not only the Pope, other faith leaders have come along that have put environment and climate change on the center of the reflections of humankind. So I think it's very positive, mainly in a moment in which we must give very political support to the final leg of the negotiations of COP21 in Paris. We are in the edge of reaching a huge agreement, it's a major challenge, and the work at technical level has been slow up to the moment. The political commitment is high, and the desire to achieve a result is very important. So have the support of the faith leaders and making everybody in the world reflect that nature we must look after it, that we have to have a work to do and a duty for future generations is extremely important. And his message was very positive today, but also in the full content of the Lateral Museum.
And he seems, when you talk to him, sort of fully plugged in on the issue around climate change and the upcoming Paris conference.
He is also concerned about how we change also the economy, because it's not only climate change, it's a change in the way we approach the economy, to finances, finance and everything. It's a very more comprehensive approach. It's not limited the Lateral Museum to climate change. It makes a whole reflection on how this society of ours is so focused on consumption and we have the same habits. It's worth reading and it's worth reflecting on.
Thanks very much. To return to the topic of the evening, we've already seen a few notes up on the Twitter board, wondering if the whole push to add additional gas resources is mistaken, that the estimates for future gas use are over-optimistic or wrong, and that there's a danger of leaving stranded assets and over-investing in gas.
I think we're very cautious in our approach to defining a new strategy comprehensively for energy and for gas, no? Because the Commission is not focusing its main activity in having more gas, more supplies of gas. There are enormous reserves of gas in the world at the moment. We are focusing in having more sources of supply, more routes, different supply. We are seeking diversification of supply of gas. Because if there is a monopoly, prices will always be high. If there is a monopoly, energy can be used as a political tool. And then we are focusing on how we diversify. But we are realistic. We are realistic. Consumption in the European Union has been reduced by 20% in the last time, in the last years. And there are reasons for it. Mainly because we have energy and climate targets important, of reducing emissions, of increasing renewables, and enforcing energy efficiency at around the table. Mainly also because we have had mild winters, also mainly because coal is competing fiercely with gas, has been previously expressed. So there are many factors which are on the table now. But I think the most important is the big deployment of renewables and the efforts we are making in the energy efficiency sector. And then when we make our estimates about the future needs of gas, we have a range between 380 BCMs or 450 BCMs. I mean, exactly because we don't know the economic growth will be in the future. But there is something we know, that we have approved a 2030 framework, energy and climate, and then we have a 40% reduction of greenhouse gases, a 27% objective for renewables, and a 27% of energy efficiency. With that as a whole, the situation is that we will need an amount of gas we know. What we are doing, developing high-level dialogues with new suppliers, trying to analyze what are the bottlenecks, what are the missing links in our infrastructures to make the internal market work. And that's what we are doing at the moment. At the same time, we want that every single member state have access to at least 3 different sources. That's why we put in action all the reverse flows, which is a very important tool to make gas flow not southeast west, but bidirectionally. That's why we are supporting the Southern Corridor. That's why we have established a high-level dialogue with Algeria and with other countries at the moment, and we will take it. And that's mainly what we are going to develop an LNG strategy that will come early next year with a comprehensive gas packet that the Commission will put on the table.
How much of this is being driven by, because part of the original idea of the Energy Union was the suggestion made by Donald Tusk when he was still Polish Prime Minister, and that was very heavily driven by that Central European fear of Russia and the need to diversify away from an over-reliance on Russian gas. How much of that is that Central European preoccupation is driving the broader, especially when it comes to gas, the broader gas picture for the EU?
It was very clear when I took office, we saw the picture, that in Central Eastern European, there were missing links, there were lots of interconnected. That way we have launched CICIG as a high-level dialogue, and that's as we are launching 14 complete projects, not big mega infrastructures, but corridors to link Bulgaria, with Serbia, Bulgaria, with Romania, Bulgaria, with Greece. So, if that is possible, that's where we are prioritizing our projects of common interest. That we are connecting Europe facility, we're giving grants to those projects who contribute to integrate regions, to realize the internal real market. Another reservation, for sure, is in the Baltics, and the other one is in the Iberian Peninsula, because now we are developing, now there are big resources in the Mediterranean, in Egypt, in Israel, and LNG becomes a real possibility, but there is no real capacity of interconnection in the Iberian Peninsula with France, and there are missing links in France with Central Europe. Those are the infrastructures we want to build. So to complete the internal market, to establish real competition between LNG and pipeline gas, and to make sure that there is no dependence on a single supply of gas. That's the work we're doing.
When it comes specifically to gas, what's your very long-term view of gas's role in the energy picture? Because obviously from the point of view of oil and gas companies, they see a permanent place for gas in 2050, 2100, that it's just a part of that permanent energy picture. If you talk to environmental groups, there's this much stronger push for an eventual ending of all fossil fuels, including gas. Where do you come down on that?
The Commission has a very clear position during the climate talks. we say we want to enforce policies who permit us to limit the increase of world temperature to 2 degrees centigrade. And that means full decarbonization of our communities in 2100. It's not the Commission who says so. It's the IPCC expert panel. It's all the experts of the world. We also said that we need, in order to arrive at full decarbonization, there must be a roadmap. That's why we say we have to reduce emissions in 2030, 40% greenhouse gases, but in 2050, the target we would like is 60%. So progressively, we will need to develop a next scenario of renewables and energy efficiency, but there will also always be need for backup. And gas is the cleanest fossil fuel, for sure. Gas is not the end of the road. Gas is a bridge between coal and renewables and energy, which is the best scenario they can do. So there is a real role for gas. That's why in our forecast 2030, gas will be there. In 2050, gas will still be there. But we will be aiming, the world is aiming to full decarbonization in the future. And that's why all the energy companies in the world are diversified. So it's not only the Commission who is delivering targets, who is enforcing legislation, the companies are reorienting the business towards green growth, green economy, and that's a fact.
Great. We've got Commissioner Cañete here. We'll open the floor to questions. If anybody has a question, please put your hand up and go ahead. There's a microphone in the seat.
All right. I have succeeded. Jonathan Isle from the Royal United Services Institute in London. I want to repeat the chairman's question on the differences in perceptions between what used to be called the western part of the continent and the Central European part of the continent about Russia as a reliable supplier. Do you consider that it is still a factor, or have we reached a consensus about how to deal with Russia as a customer, but also as a sort of subject for diversification in our supplies?
What we have experienced in the past, prolonged disruptions of supplies of Russian gas. We made in 2014 important stress tests which showed us the consequences of possible disruptions if gas is used eventually as a political tool. And that's why we are going to deliver in early 2016 a new security of gas supply regulation to enforce our resilience to any kind of externalities of disruption. That's why we want that reverse flows working condition and compressors all over the place so that we have and now at the moment we have a situation we are discussing the winter supplies to Ukraine in talks which are not easy, and the Commission is doing all the necessary efforts to arrange a new winter package. But we know that this is but the Russians took a decision which is to interrupt the flows to Ukraine and told us we will stop in a few years traffic to Ukraine and we will put the gas in other places, and it's up to you to build mega structures. And our answer was very clear. We will not support, as projects of common interest, mega structures. We will point to diversification of supply. We will develop an interesting LNG and storage strategy. We are going to diversify to avoid this. And in those countries who are dependent on a single provider of gas, we are going to make sure they have access to 3 different sources of gas. That's the work we want to do. And we have seen in Lithuania what happens. When you start announce you are going to put a gas or the gasification plant, the prices immediately drop because there will be competition. So competition in the market, realizing a real internal market, having competition and having different suppliers on the game. In a moment in which the prices of LNG have been steadily reducing, we started with 20, and then 10, now it's 7. It is going to be a big offer of LNG in the future. It's not the traditional players. We're not speaking only of Qatar. Now we have Mozambique, Cuba reserves. We now have the latest discoveries in Egypt, in Cyprus. We have Israel. There is going to be developed a an estimate are happen very soon because the reserves are enormous in the area. We're not speaking peanuts. We're speaking about 2,800 BCMs of proven reserve and on the way of exploration much more BCM. So things are changing very fast. 5 years ago we wouldn't have spoken of FLNG as an alternative. Now it's on the table. We are discussing with the Americans TTIP. There is an energy chapter. If we have a trade agreement, we have access to export from the United States. So all of this together change the landscape and makes those member states who are highly dependent on Russia less dependent and more confident. And another problem, they could get the prices. Because one of the problems we have faced with Russian gas is that not every member pays the same price. The beauty of a hub is that you have access at the same price for everybody who goes to the hub. The problem with Russian gas is that some members pay one price, another who have no possibility of supply pay much more higher prices. That's one of the reasons the Commission has intervened with the competition authorities in this issue. So I think it's in the best interest of everybody to have a diversification strategy, a strategy of building the missing links, of solving the bottlenecks, and having a comprehensive approach. Having in mind that the Commission aim is to develop renewables and to go for energy efficiency. I would say something. When we say that the share of gas will be 25% in the energy mix, more or less, in 2030, that if we go for a 27% energy efficiency. But my own policy, what I will try to do with that political support is to go for 30%. In that case, the share of gas will be 21%. In our final energy consumption.
And the trick is going to be pushing that through.
The chip, but that was an open opportunity because in the European Council in October 2014, there was the possibility to go to 2030, 30 further away. And then we will try and push because the Energy Union is one of the 10 political priorities of the Nuclear Commission. And within the Energy Union, developing energy efficiency is absolute a priority. So we will try to push because it's the way forward.
Any other question here?
Yes, Commissioner Cañete, my name's Marat Tortero, I'm from the Brussels Energy Club. A lot of this discussion...
I think it's the button on the microphone.
Okay, so just to repeat, Marat Tortero, Brussels Energy Club. A lot of this discussion about, Russia, monopoly supply gas, it tends to be associated with the idea that monopoly supplier is associated with high gas prices. And that is true to some degree. We have seen, of course, those countries that are under Russian gas supply domination have high gas prices. However, we at the moment are living in a period, maybe not an era, but a period of low oil prices. And as you know, we've had long-term contracts. We're moving away from this sort of model, but it's still, a good part of the gas trade in Europe is premised on long-term contracts. Now, this
Could we just get a quick
yes, this has seen gas prices fall commensurately, to a lot of European energy consumers. So we're likely to stay in this era for some time, or this period for some time. Hence, gas prices remain low. Does that reduce the argument for diversification? Much of the energy union is really all about diversification and not about some of the other reasons for the very high cost of energy inside the European Union. Downstream related costs, marketing costs, taxes. This is not to do with external suppliers. This is to do with... Thank you.
My feeling is that price is the leading factor to guide you toward diversification. Diversification is to have competition in the market and to have security of supply. And that is with high prices and with low prices. And we don't know what will the prices in the future. I have seen prices go up and down, and policies cannot go down, change it in function of the level of price. Of course, there are important. Now there's an opportunity with low prices to eliminate subsidies to fuel fossil fuels for sure, there's a big opportunity. But it doesn't change our position. When you see the map of the European Union, you see that we don't have a rational system of interconnections complete. See, Italy needs more compressors to be able to connect all the new possibilities that we have of gas coming from the Mediterranean. Spain has to connect with Central Europe. Spain has an unused energy capacity enormous, 130 BCMs, and probably doesn't use more than 30 or 40. So 90 BCMs free, available to be used to canalize gas to Central Europe. There are missing infrastructures. At the same time, private companies are making mega projects. It's their choice. They make mega projects, they have to comply with European legislation. That's for sure. Okay.
Thank you very much, and we'll jump to the panel now. So if I could ask Stefan Singer, the Director of Global Energy Policy at the WWF, to take the chair at the end. Then Rokas Masiulis, the Minister of Energy from Lithuania. And we have Adina Joanna Valean, Vice President of the European Parliament. And Klaus Schäfer, the member of the Executive Board of E.ON and future CEO of Uniper, I guess, beginning at the January 1st. Seeing as we have the Commissioner, and my understanding is you're here till 7:30 before you... Maybe we could begin, starting with Stefan, if you've got any thoughts on what you heard the commissioners say, and any issues that you'd like to pick up with them, since we have them here on the panel.
Thanks a lot, Jan. Coming from an environmental global NGO, of course, I have a couple of points. Let me first, and it might be sounding very usual, congratulate Mr. Bencher from Shell that the first time he was saying gas is a short-term fuel and not a destination fuel. It's a responsible fuel. It's the first time I hear that from Shell. I think we need to look into gas as a transition fuel towards renewables and not a destination fuel. I think that's the way forward. We have many issues with you on Arctic, but I think I should say that one in terms of a good cooperation in the future.
I think we'll get
Yeah, but I want to say that because it's the first time we hear that one from Shell.
He's twisting in his chair.
I want to be honest here. Second thing to Mr. Cañete from the Commission. One thing, the IPCC has never said, in order to stay below 2 degrees, we have to decarbonize by the end of the century. They have said by after 2050 globally. Europe has a target. Europe has a target agreed, not legally binding, by the heads of states to say we want to reduce our global greenhouse gas emissions as Europeans by between 80 and 95% by 2050. Up to 95%. And my question to the Commission is here, can you deliver us, propose us a range or a carbon budget, how much gas, how much emissions from gas would play a role in that carbon budget? Of course, there's also oil and coal in the equation, but as we talk about gas here, it's very important to have a carbon budget for gas. Because there is a discussion about Dash for Gas, and there's a discussion about transition of gas, and so on and so on. So we are very confused, and we are concerned about that one. So having a long-term decarbonization scenario in Europe would not necessarily include gas for the long term. In the short term, yes, I agree, gas has a role to play as a transition fuel, but at some point in time it needs to be phased out. No one talks about the phase-in, phase-out scenario, and I think the Commission has a role to play. In that context, let me remind you that we're a little bit confused, I'll say this diplomatically. We see from the Commission communication that your prime scenario delivers a short-term growth of gas, not very strongly compared to now, whereas the same Commission services project that gas demand will be reduced by up to 20% in case, and you mentioned that one, in case Europe achieves its 27% energy efficiency objectives. But there's a mismatch in your own communication, right? I think that's important that the Commission has a strong joint voice on what gas can contribute towards a decarbonized Europe in that respect. I think that's very important.
Maybe we'll let the commissioner, seeing as there's been a few issues sort of thrown at it, let's see if you...
Probably the first time you have heard me saying a figure about my expectation of what suppose gas is today. So I'm communicating on the name of the Commission. And I say we expect it to be between 380 450.
Yes.
And that should be 25% of the energy mix. But I also have said that I don't want to limit myself to 27% energy efficiency, but I want to go for 30%.
I know.
As I am trying to go, I will have to support the Parliament decision. Then it will be only 21%, and that's for sure. On the other side, on the carbonization, we're in the middle of a climate change talks, and we want the world to agree climate change. It's proving enormously difficult to have a long-term goal, I must tell you. Enormously, because when we propose a figure of reduction of emissions, very clear, we don't have full support of an important cause. We are fighting our way. And that's why we have proposed, and we will have to fix that position also with the European ministers on Friday, which is the mandate of the That's why then we established a 60% reduction compared to 2010 levels in 2050 globally for all the world. For sure we'll have our internal debate. But at the moment, the most important thing is to act globally. Because if the European Union acts single, we have less than 10% of our emissions, it's meaningless. We need the whole world to attach themselves to a global union. Now my fight at the moment I have a very clear picture. 40% in 2030, at least, domestically. Fighting in the climate change negotiation to have a 2050 ambitious objective. As ambitious as we can. Not easy. And then full decarbonization to 2100 is what we are playing or discussing at the moment. With those battles, if we win all of them, we have made lots of progress. I know you will say it's insufficient, but I might tell you that they think we are the most ambitious guys in the middle of the discussion with these targets, no? And we want to deliver that to more business. I come from the Pacific Islands. If you go there, you understand the real problem. Our friend was speaking about energy and development. There is climate change to be fighting against to be or not to be. And they don't want only 2 degrees, they want 1.5. Which is faster track of the carbonization economy.
Yeah.
So this is an ongoing negotiation, and it's very important that in Paris there's an agreement, and it's very important that Paris is a very ambitious agreement.
Okay, thanks. Minister Masiulis, you've been, Lithuania's been sort of on the cutting edge of Russian gas dependency and then the LNG terminal. You've seen for yourself the impact that sort of thing has had on prices. What's your assessment of how Brussels and the Commission are functioning when it comes to looking for these alternate sources and trying to diversify away from an over-reliance on a single supplier? And if you have any comments to the Commission as well.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm very happy to see what Commission is doing.